was 1993, and I was a manager at Pizza Hut, and Jen had shortly after got a job there as a waitress, and we kind of met that way.
It's a love story traced back to their teenage years.
Beautiful girl, very outgoing and fun to be with.
That grew into 2 decades of marriage and a son in central Minnesota.
We did it, baby! Woo!
Jen Nitz was a regular runner, didn't drink or smoke, taking a healthy lifestyle seriously with her husband, Andy.
We love the outdoors, working on projects up north, hiking, biking, camping, time on the water, outside as much as possible.
It is why what has happened to her is heartbreaking to see.
What did you think, Jen, when you're told you have to be vaccinated? What's the first thing that goes through your mind?
The way that life changed in a moment, all because of a mandate.
Being forced. It wasn't her. She didn't like the fact that it was the decision, the health decision for our own health was taken out of a lot of our, abilities to choose for ourselves.
Jen had recovered fine from COVID before and primarily worked from home as a special investigator for health insurance fraud for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota.
It was tough. I didn't want her to get it. She was up against, working with the same company for 20 years, and she was finally in a position. She absolutely loved her job. It was kind of she found her spot, her passion. She was very passionate about it, and it was tough. I could understand the situation that she was in.
Jen suffered allergic reactions to flu vaccines in the past, but finally received her first Pfizer shot in October of 2021. Shortly after her second, weeks later, concerning symptoms set in.
Things started to reoccur. Nightly headaches, this really bad chest pain like acid reflux, heartburn.
Never had that before.
Never.
Ultimately, it was a family workout the morning of Thanksgiving when it became much more serious.
We were kind of working out in the same area for a little while. I was on the stair climber and she was on the treadmill, and that was about enough for me. So then Dawson and I went to the pool and the hot tub. And then that's when it came across the loudspeaker. She had asked them to call for me when she knew something was going on.
I fell off.
So you fell over.
They were saying if there's an Andy in the building, come to the front.
Jen had suffered a brainstem stroke at the age of 49, essentially the worst place for blood flow to be blocked. A medical emergency. She barely survived.
I had an ICU nurse actually call me, when I was going home, and he's like, be prepared that when you get here, she might not be here. It was like that for a few days. It's a tough area because all the cranial nerves kind of come through there. So it literally has affected Jen, from head to toe in one way or another.
After coming out of a 10-day medically induced coma, Andy says Jen was quick to connect the dots.
I was suspecting the vaccine right away, but at the time we weren't, I didn't mention anything to her. None of it really mattered at that point, why it happened. It's like, she's here and we need to address this right now. So we hadn't talked about it yet, but a Pfizer commercial came on and she almost come out of her chair. She was shaking her fist at the screen and stuff, and that's when I asked her, I'm like, did the vaccine do this to you? And she knew it right away.
I did.
Jen spent months away from her family in a rehab center as Andy scrambled to make changes at home to bring them all back together. A harness system on a treadmill and tandem bicycle have brought back some movement in Jen's arm and leg.
It feels like they have like a boilerplate protocol for stroke therapy. It's about as much as we think we can do for you, so it's time for you to go home. And meanwhile, we're like, we know we have a lot of ground that we can cover, an improvement that we can make.
Yeah, I've been stubborn.
Yeah, she's stubborn. This woman fights harder than anyone I can imagine.
Yeah.
Still, nearly a year and a half later, they can't help but think this didn't have to happen.
It's absolutely frustrating, to see how much of this has affected other people's lives.
In a statement, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota said, for privacy reasons, we cannot comment on the medical history of current or former associates, but that throughout the pandemic, they held the health and safety of our associates as top priorities. Our COVID-19 vaccination policy did allow for exemption requests to be considered based on physician-certified medical reasons or sincerely held religious beliefs.
It was just this mandate that you could lose your livelihood, you could lose your job.
Now, I'm looking now. No job.
10 months after Jen's stroke, the company dropped their mandate as a condition of employment.
Has anyone ever apologized for what happened?
No.
Never.
Andy reported Jen's injury himself to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. He only recently received a VAERS follow-up as they await some kind of compensation. More than 20,000 Minnesotans have reported adverse events associated with the shots, 287 people with permanent disabilities, and 500 deaths. The Centers for Disease Control has only recently acknowledged a stroke risk associated with Pfizer injections.
I think we should have a say.
The Nitz family has relied on their faith, and a goal this once active mom repeats.
I want to be independent again.
Jen was very active with Dawson.
He's doing pretty good.
They still do spend time together, but it's still not the...
It's different.
It's different.
Different.
And it's been tough for him to have this happen.
Recognizing that life can change in an instant, and how unconditional love is perhaps the most powerful medicine of all.
Don't lose hope and just keep working. Can't ever give up.
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting,
Keep
yeah.
fighting.
Yeah.